Hi, Flick here from the Nerd Soapbox, and today we're at the Stan Lee Los Angeles Comic-Con. Yes, and well, we've had so many fine guests who were voices of my childhood growing up. We've had Maurice LaMerge, we've had Lauren Lester, Michael Bell. Well, today I've got a real special guest who, well, I have to thank for assembling these voices on many of my favorite shows. Voice and casting director, Andrea Romano. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, very nice to meet you.
Oh, very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Wow. Oh, geez, you're just adorable.
You're very cute.
Oh, I'm gonna blush. Thanks. Okay. So, let's start off. Give me some of the talent you've worked with, such as Mel Blanc and Daws Butler.
Amazing.
Okay. Have you ever been starstruck by any of the big names who've walked into the recording studio?
Do you know who I was really absolutely impressed with was Daws Butler when I first met, because Huckleberry Hound was my favorite cartoon character.
I love that.
And when I met him, he spoke to me as Huckleberry Hound. I know. And I started
Wow.
to cry. I cried because it was so special and so... It was like he had stepped out of the TV and talked to me.
Wow.
That was really cool. More so than any other on-camera celebrity, that one blew me away.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I understand that before you were voice directing, you had a career as an agent.
I was.
June Foray and
I
Frank
know.
Welker.
It's true.
Paul Winchell were your clients?
Yes. And June Foray, I was very lucky. Brilliant, genius, wonderful actress. And I would call her and give her appointments for the day and say, okay, you have to be over at Hanna-Barbera at this time. You have to be, and then she would say thank you, and I'd say, June, would you say goodbye to me as Natasha? And she would say, yes, darling.
Moose and squirrel.
Exactly, an excellent job, Perk.
Wow. I'd never get off the phone with her. She'd be like, can I hang up now?
Just very good.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about your time at Hanna-Barbera, like working on shows like the Smurfs and or bringing back the original cast of the Jetsons,
Absolutely.
such as George Hamlin?
George O'Hanlon.
O'Hanlon.
O'Hanlon, it's okay.
Oops.
Yes, I loved my time at Hanna-Barbera. I was there for 5.5 years.
Right.
And the Smurfs, imagine how many people had to be cast for that show.
Oh, yeah.
And Ginny McSwain did the initial casting.
All right.
And I did all the guest casting after that and some of the incidental casting.
Okay.
And then we did a show called The Snorks, which was essentially the Smurfs underwater. And that also required tons and tons of actors. So I got to know a lot of actors right then and there at the very beginning of my career. And then the Jetsons, when they told me they wanted to do the Jetsons, 41 new episodes, my idea was to go back and find all the original actors, which we did, including George O'Hanlon.
Thank you, by the way.
Oh, thanks for saying something. Wasn't it cool?
Yes,
They were
I
so
love the
good.
I love the Jetsons.
Me too. And where are those like cars that fold up into a suitcase? I'm waiting for one of those.
They promised us flying cars.
I know, flying cars and personal jetpacks. I'm still waiting.
Yeah. Okay, you, along with Steven Spielberg, were instrumental in the renaissance of Warner Brothers animation in the 90s, like shows like Tiny Toon Adventures, Animaniacs, Batman. I love Batman.
Me too.
Can you talk about that time period and the influences you've had on animation since then?
I was so proud to work on those shows. And, you know, Steven Spielberg wasn't just a name on the show. He really worked on the show.
Oh, wow.
He would come up with story ideas. He would read the storyboards.
No wonder they're so good.
I know, they're really good. And he actually acted in an episode of Tiny Toons. I directed Steven Spielberg.
Wow.
How about that? I know, pretty cool.
That's really
and
cool.
then Animaniacs I loved, and Pinky and the Brain, the spin-off of that, still makes me laugh.
It makes me laugh too.
And then Batman the Animated Series, such a different type of series, so action-oriented and so a different kind of animation energy, but still really hard and really good. And then I was lucky enough to work on a bunch of different types of shows, like The Boondocks, or Spongebob Squarepants, or Justice League. And I love the fact, me too. I love the fact that I got to do so many different types of shows. That's what was really fun for me. Was I would start the morning doing a Ben 10, and then the afternoon I would go do a Spongebob. Or I would go do a Justice League in the morning, and then I would go do a Boondocks episode in the afternoon. So it was always different work. Very nice.
That leads us to our next question.
Okay.
All right. What are the challenges of recording a serious dramatic show like Batman versus a lighthearted and zany one such as Animaniacs?
It was just remembering which show I was doing, and that I had to be more in the mind of doing a comedy, and I would do Animaniacs or SpongeBob, and that the Batman, although there would be some humor in it sometimes, it was a very dark show.
Oh, yeah.
And so there had to be a little bit more like live action.
Okay. All right. What cartoons did you enjoy as a child?
Well, Huckleberry Hound was my favorite.
Yeah.
And most of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, so that's why I was so glad to work at Hanna-Barbera. So Yogi Bear and the Jetsons and like Wally Gator, Flintstones, brilliant. Huckleberry Hound, and I'm sorry, Quick Draw McGraw.
Yes,
Those were good ones.
Baba Louie.
Baba Louie. And then I also liked the classic Looney Tunes. I liked Bugs Bunny and all those, the Roadrunner, which is really weird that I like the Roadrunner because as a voice director, there's no voices in that cartoon. Nobody talks.
This is right. I just thought of that.
Exactly. And the other ones that I really loved were the Jay Ward cartoons, the Rocky and Bullwinkle, Fractured Fairy Tales. I thought those were genius. Brilliant. Wonderful.
Very well done. Okay. Do you have any career highlights in the recording booth?
Well, Spielberg was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Carrie Elway's The Princess Bride.
Yeah.
He came in and worked for me on an episode of Pinky and the Brain that was a takeoff on Hamlet, the Shakespeare play Hamlet. And Carrie played Hamlet, and Olivia Hussey, who played Juliet in Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet, played Queen Gertrude. And that was a remarkable session for me. I loved working with those actors.
Wow.
That was something I've always remembered.
Okay. Any standouts for talent that you discovered during the audition? Like, say, Kevin Conroy?
Just like Kevin Conroy. Or Mark Hamill.
Greg Sipes?
Greg Sipes, yep. Kevin Conroy was a brilliant find. I was so lucky. I searched and finally found him at the end of the casting process. I had heard well over 500 auditions
500?
before I found Kevin.
Wow.
And then the Joker, Mark Hamill, wonderful. I was lucky that he wanted to do this work and reached out to me. And Greg Sipes came in and auditioned in just this wonderful voice, this what we call a voice with character. The voice itself already has a tone to it. He doesn't have to put on too much to have this wonderful sound. And that was a really nice find too. And also Hynden Walsh, who's the voice of Starfire on Teen Titans. I discovered her too. Somebody said, I've heard this actress and she's really great. She sounds like she's 14, but she's really 25. And she did, in fact, sound so young, and she's such a good actress.
What do you have? What advice do you have for aspiring voice actors, such as myself, maybe?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Take acting classes first.
Okay.
Because being able to do voices is wonderful, but you need to be able to act first and foremost.
All right.
And if you're not a good actor, then I can't hire you. So you need to be a good actor so I can hire you.
That makes perfect sense.
Good.
Yeah, that makes great sense.
Good.
All right. Well, we recently interviewed Maurice LaMarche on the show, and I was wondering if you could talk about the Animaniacs episode, Yes, Always, and how that came about.
Yes. There's a very well-known in the voiceover community outtake reel of Orson Welles being really abusive to the engineers and the directors of a couple of different sessions. And Maurice LaMarche loved that outtake reel. And so he memorized it. And whenever I would work with him, he would sit in front of the microphone and do the entire outtake reel. And I kept listening to it, and I thought, there's going to be a way that I can use that Orson Welles voice, which we did when we cast him as the Brain. And then the producer, Peter Hastings, who's also a writer, said, I'm going to write an episode that puts Brain in the situation to say those words. So it became an ADR session.
I love that.
It was an ADR session for an episode of Pinky and the Brain, and he was brought in, and he's a real jerk in the session. At the very end of the session, I say, because I appear in that cartoon, and I say, all right, you're all here to audition for the part of the Brain. And then Brain hops back up on the microphone and gets very, very friendly and very good. He didn't want to lose his job.
No, that's one of my favorites.
Me too. Me too.
Given your recent retirement, what are your future plans? I hear there may be a book in the horizon.
I'm writing my memoirs right now. I have great stories. I have really cool things that have happened in my career. And so I'm writing a bunch of really cool things right now.
Okay.
Yep. About a year, I think it'll be ready.
All right. Need anybody to proofread or something?
Maybe.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
reach out.
available.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, I can check it out firsthand. And,
excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we go, can you take us out with maybe a couple of fight scene grunts or groans?
Absolutely.
Maybe show me how.
I will.
Yeah.
Here's what I've learned about what makes the sounds for a fight scene work.
All right.
If you're either throwing the punch or doing the kick, if you're the one doing the action, if you put an H on the front of it, it sounds like good. Excellent. If you're taking the hit, if you start it with a vowel, exactly. Now, do the sound of throwing a punch and then taking a punch.
All right.
Oh, that's it. Excellent. Well done.
This is fantastic. Oh man. Wow. Okay, one minute. Can I have a hug?
Oh gosh, yes.
Thank you so much.
You're very sweet.
I don't know what I would have done without you. Seriously, like so many hours would have been just wasted.
Thank you for watching.
Oh, thank you. Well, let's see who else we could find at Stan Lee's Los Angeles Comic-Con. This is like a dream come true.
Aww,
this really is. I'm just like,
you.
my little heart's like, like that. It's like I'm so excited right now.
It's really nice to meet you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
Wow. Don't mind if I faint a little bit?
That's right.